Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Writers Podcast. I have with me today writer Mack Little. Hello, Mack. How are you doing?
Great.
Eh,
Doing great.
Okay, and your latest book is?
Daughter of Hades.
Okay, and what genre of fiction is that?
It is a historical romance
Okay.
set in the 17th century.
Okay, very cool. And before we dive into that, let's find out a little bit about yourself. So, do you have a little bio that you use regularly to introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. I was born in a small town called Conyers, Georgia, and I moved around the country. First, I lived in Iowa for my undergraduate at the University of Dubuque, and I joined the Army for 5 years, and met my husband, came to Texas, and worked as a librarian for a while, and ended up writing, which has been my lifelong dream.
Okay.
So that's
cool.
my bio. I guess that's my CV, really.
Right. No, that's great. And I'm curious, were you a reader your whole life?
Absolutely. My parents tell me I was distraught before I started grade school because I couldn't read. And once I did start going to school, book fairs were my jam. I loved buying books, and I love libraries. And when I was 6 years old, I started my own library and made my friends check out books from me, even though they didn't read.
Right.
But yeah, I've always been a lover of stories. And my grandmother, we used to share books between us all during my growing up.
Excellent. And did you gravitate to a certain type of fiction, certain genres, or?
Yeah. Yes, I did. My favorite genre is horror, and that's where I got my start.
Okay. Any favorite authors?
I love Dan Simmons, and I like the more cerebral horrors. I don't know if I can pronounce the author's name, but his book, it's called The House of Leaves.
Okay.
Part of it, it gave me nightmares. That was the scariest book I've ever read. It was psychologically just really dark, and yeah.
Okay.
So I would say that's my favorite. Oh, and Cormac McCarthy.
Oh, okay.
Now he has a reputation as like a Western writer, maybe more literary, but his stories can be so graphic and so dark. They could be like the most perfect, beautiful horror story I've ever read.
Yeah. That's a pretty good list of readers or authors, I should say. I'm a big Dan Simmons fan as well. So yeah, Dan Simmons, he's primarily known for science fiction, but his Carrie and Comfort I thought was a fantastic horror novel. I really loved that one.
Yeah, and there was another one, Summer Nights, or
Yep, Summer Nights, yeah, and of course The Terror, which was a TV series a while back, was pretty good too. I have to ask, because one of my sister podcasts that I do is the Stephen King podcast. Any like for Mr. King, or is that not your type? It's not cerebral.
No. Dolores Claiborne, Gerald's Game. I like those books.
Right.
Okay. The Gunslinger series, not so much, or the Stand, not so much. But I like his character studies with Dolores Claiborne. And there was if you read both Dolores Claiborne and Gerald's Game, you see how they connected with each other, which is really cool.
I don't know if you've read it, you didn't mention it, but if you seem to gravitate towards this books that have female protagonists, you might like Lisi's story as well. That's pretty good. And
I think I'd like to read it. I tried watching it on Apple, but
yes. Okay. So you're well grounded in reading, and you obviously had an aptitude for it since you started your own library. And what how did that carry on for you when you started going to school and post-secondary education? Did you take
Right.
any creative courses, writing courses, or anything? Or
My whole reason for going to college was to become a writer.
okay,
And, my major was English. First, I had a minor in international politics, then I changed it to Spanish. And
mm,
but it's all because I wanted to write and I wanted to travel.
hmm,
And I I focused my studies. I took novel writing courses, and then my professor for novel writing told me that uh, I needed to live first.
yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, yeah,
And that it kind of put water on my fire for writing,
mm,
because I
right.
and so that's what I did. I
Is that
went
why
to
you joined the army?
Well, no, well, kinda.
Mm,
I considered myself a pacifist as an undergraduate, to tell you the truth.
sure.
And even though it would have been great, it would have been helpful for me to join the ROTC because, of college bills and whatnot.
Hmm.
But I just wanted to travel. When I was 19, I went to Venezuela with
Mm,
like only 1 year of Spanish. And then I went to Spain for a semester and studied international politics there.
mm,
And when I graduated with my English degree and Spanish minor, I was only able to like get teaching jobs with that. And I
okay.
didn't want to be a teacher,
Okay.
and I couldn't afford to go to graduate school.
Mm,
So I joined the army.
okay.
Yeah. So
And what did you take, or what service were you in? Were you in like in communications or?
I was a clerk.
Okay.
I was a clerk, and as a part, joined with the military police. Uh, I lived in Germany
Mm.
for 3 years, and I served in Bosnia under the UN I-4 forces.
Wow.
And yeah,
And you did that for 5 years?
yeah, I was in the army for 5 years. 3 of those were spent in Germany.
Okay, very cool. And over the course of your education and your army service, how much writing were you doing?
None.
None.
I
Okay.
was all
So,
all the writing I was doing was in my head,
ah,
basically.
okay. So when did the pen start to hit the paper?
I was in my late 40s, to tell
Okay.
you the truth. So I was talking to a friend, and I told him I always wanted to be a writer. And it's like, well, what have you written? And I'm like, nothing. And I felt so embarrassed. And so I really sat down and tried to give it an effort to try to finish the story, but I
Hmm.
really couldn't on my own. I couldn't finish the story. I didn't know how. So what I did was I found some writing organizations, the Houston Writers Guild, and it was a great start for me. It was the best decision I ever
Mm.
made. They had critique groups.
Okay.
And when I joined a critique group, I had to have 10 pages every week to read to the group.
Okay.
So they gave me accountability, and 10 pages by 10 pages by 10 pages, I finally finished my first novel.
Ah,
Mhm.
okay. And what was that?
It was Progenie, and it was a vampire novel. It was about a young lady, a young resident who was not quite human, who was trying to figure out her past. And I'm sorry. I had a log line for this, all prepared, but
Okay.
it's just trying to find her identity. And it turns out that the source of her powers were from a dark source. In
Okay. And so that was your first book. Is it a standalone or is it part of a series or?
It's a part of a series.
Okay.
It was published by Elysian Press, but
Hmm.
right now it's out of publication.
Okay. And how did you find that experience of writing your first book?
It was great.
Mm-hmm.
I love being totally immersed in the story. Even now, the story is still with me. It's still generating ideas, and the characters are still with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I still um, continue to write, other pieces, focusing on other characters in the story.
Okay. And do you have like a a, a book or a series planned for that book, or is it?
I have a series planned for it,
Mm-hmm.
um, but basically, I was with a small press when I
Mm-hmm.
published it, and I'm looking for a larger platform.
Okay.
I think it would do well in foreign markets, so I'm looking for an agent um, to help me to get the right to foreign markets and
Okay.
maybe, yeah, even movie options. So
Okay.
I just wanted a broader platform for it.
Sure. Any thoughts of self-publishing?
Um, no,
Okay.
because it's very expensive to do
Mm-hmm.
it on my own, and I feel like my story is strong enough uh,
Okay.
to merit someone investing in it, and I think with the right investment, it could generate a lot of interest in story because as a Black writer, writing in the commercial genre, the landscape is really monochromatic,
Mm-hmm.
and it's my passion and my mission to be able to write escapist fare
Mm-hmm.
with persons of color without their presence being predicated on, suffering and racial trauma.
Okay.
You know, I mean, we want to escape into magical
Sure.
spheres as well, and it would
Mm-hmm.
be nice to have, people who aren't persons of color be able to imagine us in these
Sure. Yep.
realms.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so my books, my vampire books are very multicultural. So are my historical fiction, and I think I do a pretty good job of foregrounding how races, cultures, and sexual orientation all
Mm-hmm.
can live concurrently and you know interact. I think I do a pretty good job of that.
Okay. So that's interesting to me that you're writing, like, your latest book is a historical fiction, right?
Yes.
And is your protagonists, are they colored characters, or?
Sure. A brother and sister escaping slavery from Barbados.
Okay.
So they are biracial.
Mm-hmm.
Um, their father was taken from Africa, and their
Mm-hmm.
mother was an Irish indentured servant.
Mm-hmm.
And the other set of siblings that I focus on are two brothers who are French Huguenots, and they're escaping religious persecution in France.
Mm-hmm.
And both pairs of siblings that I tell a dual storyline, and then they kind of start to intertwine. They come
Mm.
together and find romance,
Okay.
adventure, danger.
Okay. So that's your idea of light fiction, because
Yeah.
that sounds pretty heavy to me. The reason I'm asking is about the ethnicity of your characters is because in that time period that you're writing historical fiction, non-white characters, well, even white characters, depending on your social standing, there's a lot of oppression going on. So that must be very um, difficult for you to write in the sense of, because these characters, you know, people want strong, independent characters, and in the time period that you're writing, that's a very difficult juggling act to carry out.
Right.
And I don't know what kind of research you did for that. And I think it's great because there's been like this very, like you said, a very monochromatic perspective on historical fiction and that. So what you're trying to do, I think, is fantastic. And I'm just curious how you're juggling that time period with modern day sensibilities where we still have these kind of issues going on.
Right. So I don't ignore slavery or
Hmm.
the oppression. I don't sugarcoat it at all, but that's not the focus of the book.
Okay.
And the focus of the book are the populations that are living in the margins of this slaveholding capitalist society. So you
Okay.
have you have the Buccaneers, and you have the Maroons, who are escaped slaves who have formed communities.
Oh, okay. And is this
Specific,
based on historical fact?
yes,
Oh,
it's
cool.
based on historical fact, and it's little known historical fact that the Maroons and the Buccaneers shared a very close relation.
Okay.
The term boucan comes from barbecued meat or whatever.
Okay.
And here's the story. Two French sailors stopped off the coast of Hispaniola, and they came across this escaped slave, this Maroon on Hispaniola, and he was barbecuing meat.
Hmm.
They stole the Maroons there, survived by poaching livestock and hunting wild boar. And
Mm.
the French sailors saw that they could escape the oppression on the ship, because a lot of times sailors are pressed into service, or
Right.
have
Right.
tyrannical captains. They could escape being sailors and come live on the island and hunt
Mm.
and steal livestock like the Maroons did. And so
Right.
that's where the Buccaneers kind of got their idea, their start. And I focus on the Maroon community in Jamaica,
Okay.
and they had a close relationship with the Buccaneers
Hmm.
and with pirates. They my One community lives in the cockpits, where it's difficult for you to get food, difficult to grow food and to
Mm.
find water. So they have to go out, they raid plantations.
Mm.
They traded with Los Oros. Those were the Creoles and the freed children of the slave masters. They traded with smugglers, also traded with the slaves on the plantation for things
Mm.
they needed. And a lot of times they would lead the pirates and the buccaneers around the island to the plantations to raid them. So it was they, and because Jamaica, a little people don't know that Jamaica was Spanish at first,
Hmm.
and it wasn't a profitable colony for the Spanish because it didn't have any gold. Um, they hadn't really settled on sugar yet as their main crop, so it wasn't really profitable as far as crops and
Okay.
out exports. So merchants wouldn't stop in Jamaica because they didn't think it was worth their while. So the plantation owners really relied on the smugglers
Mm.
to get their products out.
Mm.
And yeah, so it was a strange symbiotic relationship back then.
Right. So
So
this is
yeah.
sounds like a very romantic period and a very fertile ground for writing dramatic stories about. Uh, how did you research all of this? Did you where would you find this type of information?
Well, my idea started with the Maroons, because a
Okay.
lot of people, when people think of that time period, uh, um, when they think of that time period, they think about slavery and racial
Right.
oppression. But Maroons were a proud, fierce group of people.
Hmm.
They kept the British in terror on Jamaica the
Okay.
whole time they were occupying it. So I started researching them
Mm.
and getting my information. How do they live? Um, Developing a character based on the profiles that I read in books. I used I used historical articles from academic journals
Mm.
to try to get an accurate picture of
Right.
the lives of these people and how they interacted.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So you've got this fascinating framework that you've come across with the Maroons and the Buccaneers and so forth. So what? And you describe some of the characters. So who is the main character of your book? Who's your protagonist?
My protagonist is Denny. She's she's an enslaved girl. She was taken to the big house to live with the master, to be the master's daughter's playmate. And as Denny matured, the master's eye was turned to her. He was, you know, he had designs on her.
Right.
So her father had her taken by pirate ship to another maroon community in Jamaica where she could live. Now, that kind of addresses 2 points of the maroonage. Anywhere slavery existed in the New World, you had maroons, you had escaped slaves, but Barbados was a very small island. It's 26 miles long, and so really nowhere to hide except for in the caves. And Denny, who is a privileged slave, her father is an overseer of the plantation. So he wanted something better for his daughter. So that's why he sent her to Jamaica, where they had a more solid, defended maroon community.
Okay. So what's her arc over the course of your story?
Well, on the pirate ship, she falls in love with a Chinese sailor named Lee, which is another interesting idea I came across during my research, that there was a significant Asian population in the Caribbean that we never really hear about and that's never written about, but they were there. So she falls in love with Lee, and the master, her former owner, sets scurrilous privateer after Denny to retrieve her, and when he captures her, it's the struggle to get her back, and how she, saves herself even.
Wow. What a great concept, and such a fertile time period, because like you said, this is what you're telling me is all new to me. So I'm sure this would be quite fascinating to a lot of readers. And I'm wondering, like you've got all this research and the language of the time period. Did you how did you handle that? Like, if I was to read this, would they be talking an old style English kind of thing, or did you just sort of, just maybe briefly have a turn of phrase or something in there every once in a while just to remind people that, this is an earlier time period? How did you handle the languages and so forth?
Yeah, like you said, I tried to do it lightly. I didn't try to go heavy on it because, this is a
book for today's audiences.
It's a book for today's audience, and I want you to read it for entertainment. And while I want to throw in little bits of information to help you learn things, I want you to enjoy, what's going on. So I just sprinkled it with turn of phrases, and tried not to put too many anachronisms in there, because an interesting thing about curse words, I had to generate a list of cuss words for every language, for Spanish, for French, for Old English, and the F word didn't come into existence or wasn't widely used until the 19th century. So I kind of took literary license there.
So what was the big swear word before the 19th century?
Sarding was one.
Pardon me?
Sarding. You might hear Cotton say sodding.
Oh, sodding. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was spelled SARD.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And God's blood. And things like that. But there's a lot of arseworms and goat effers and
yeah. I know one of my favorite writers is Robert McCammon. he's got a series called Matthew Corbett, and it takes place in 1700 colonial U.S. in New York City, and it's basically like a mismatch of James Bond and Sherlock Holmes, and
Ooh, that
it's
sounds interesting.
yeah, it's a great series. It's the first book, Speaks the Nightbird, I think deals with witchcraft, and so he has to do that balancing act of showing us all these things from that time period, as well as making the language understandable, which I think he does a great job at. So your book sounds, or your context of your story sounds somewhat similar to what he's been doing there, but you've got much more flavor in your story. So that must be a lot to handle for you. Do you have a historical expert or experts that will you get them to read it to make sure that you're not doing something that's
Um,
totally wrong? Or
well, I have like laypersons who are hobbyists
okay,
that really help me, especially with the sailing
right.
terminology and the sailing knowledge. Uh, I
Mm-hmm.
have a I have a good friend, Billy Steed. He's a
Oh,
sailor, and he's really has done a lot of research into the sailing in the golden age of sail. So
okay.
he's able to tell me when I get off track, or if a type of ship I've invented existed in the time period I'm writing in.
Right,
Yeah, but I try not to get too deep in the weeds
right,
when
right. Very good. Is it so? The Daughter of Hades is the book, right?
yes. Mhm.
It's is the first book in a series or
It sure
standalone?
is. It's the first book in a series,
Okay,
and I have a novella that is a spinoff of the story that's coming out late summer.
okay.
Yeah,
And do you have plans for further books in the series, or
absolutely. I've already written the
okay,
second novel in this series, and it's with the editor as we speak.
okay,
And right now I'm getting started on the
mm,
third book in the series.
okay? And how many books do you foresee in the series? As long as you can do it, or
As- you know, I tell you that Denny and Lee are my main characters, but
Mhm,
all of my characters are so rich with such great backgrounds that I
mm,
wasn't able to, include in the book. So
mhm,
there's like 100 different directions I can go with this,
okay,
and and explore the
mm,
characters.
right.
Yeah.
So when dealing with series, do you have like a Bible that's say this is where the series is going to start and this is where it's going to end, or are you kind of free flowing with that?
I'm free flowing. All
Okay,
I do keep a spreadsheet though,
okay,
with the ages and
mm-hmm,
big events that are going on to help me
okay,
keep track and keep things in order for consistency's
all
sake
right,
across all the books.
okay. And your individual books, do you do an outline, or are you just you're a free flow kind of person?
Yeah, I'm a pantser. I'm
Okay,
free flow because I start with a character sheet,
mm-hmm,
and I write in-depth character backgrounds and descriptions and personality analysis, and I try to make them as real as possible. I
mm-hmm,
put them together, and even though I have a plan for them when I put them together, they're so real that they kind
mm-hmm.
of do what they want to do. So I it's a fool's errand for me to write an outline. I try to
Okay,
do
mm-hmm,
um, a scene outline for each
sure,
scene that I write, what I want to happen, what needs to happen to move the plot along.
mm-hmm,
But my characters, even that small portion, they'll blow it out of the water and it goes in a totally different direction. I just
right.
know where I want it to end. I know
Okay, that
I
was
have
going to be
an
my
idea.
next question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have an idea for the ending, but
Right. How
in
you get there is, yeah.
yeah, I never know. Like I'm starting a book right now. I have no idea what's gonna happen,
Very good.
and it kind of
So,
freaks me out.
yeah, yeah, I bet. Has your writing process changed at all since you did your first book as to where you are now?
Um, No, I've just solidified my writing process, but
Okay.
I'm thinking I need to change it, but I can't now. I'm in too deep.
Oh.
So what I mean is I've always been a cigar smoker, and usually my husband and I would sit down and have one cigar a week, enjoy
Okay.
that with the brandy. But now smoking cigars is a part of my writing process.
Oh my goodness.
I can't write without a cigar.
So you
So
got one on your desk right beside you all the whole time, or?
no. Okay, so you can't type while you smoke a cigar.
Right.
So, and my husband won't let me smoke a cigar in the house.
Good for him.
So so I have to sit on the porch with my
Oh.
cigar and a drink and a
Mm.
notepad, and
Wow.
I write my novels longhand.
Oh, okay. Wow. And
And
then how do you get them into the digital form? Do you transcribe them, or do you have somebody do
yeah,
that?
yeah, I transcribe them. So
Okay.
and it turned out writing longhand really freed me up because
Ah.
when I sit down at the desk and look at this blank screen and try to
Mhm.
write my scene or my story, it's like,
Right.
I want it to be perfect,
Sure.
and so I never really get anywhere.
Mm.
Writing longhand, I can just write everything down, and then when I get ready to type it, I can shape the story up
Mm.
and shape up a nice, good first draft.
Okay.
So yeah, it helps me edit. It
Right.
yeah, allows me to edit, my thoughts that I've drunkenly written down.
And do you have a set routine now for your writing? Is it a certain time of day you write,
Mhm.
and do you try it for a word count, or like what's that for you?
I don't try for a word count at all.
Okay.
That's too, what do you call it?
Structured.
Yeah, too structured, it's too binding. I need
Mm.
room to create and let it happen. So, I have a day job, and when
Hmm.
my day job is over at 4:30, I pack up and I go down to the back porch and set up my cigar and glass of wine or whiskey or whatever,
Right.
and I write until, 7 or 8 o'clock, and then I have another cigar with my husband.
That's a lot of cigars.
I know, that's what I'm saying, I'm in too deep. I'm so
uh,
addicted now.
uh-oh. I
Yeah,
gotta ask, where did this habit come from?
I don't know,
Is
I
this an
tried it
army thing?
yes, it was an army thing. I
uh,
tried it in the army, and
uh,
I realized, I liked it, and
mm,
it's a way of getting your nicotine, I guess, without inhaling. If I smoked a cigarette, I would cough, I would choke to death, I would
okay.
die.
All right.
With the cigars, you just enjoy the flavor and you don't
Mm.
inhale, but you still get really high. You know, they make me dizzy and,
Okay. And
yeah.
do you smoke it with a filter thing or a holder, or you don't
No.
just chomping on it, are you?
Yes, it's very bad. My dentist, he says, "Have you quit smoking yet?" I'm like, "No, I can't do it." I think, I'm 54 now. It's like I've
Mhm.
lived a full life.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's interesting. That's one
I
of the more interesting writing processes as I've heard.
just
I'll also have to say that.
yeah.
I imagine that in your books, there's probably a lot of cigar smoking.
No, it
No?
should be more. I think there should be more. And in my time period, I don't think tobacco is that popular yet.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully, I get to that time period where, yeah.
Oh, okay. So, so you've got this series going. Are you writing anything else besides that? Like, do you ever do short stories or anything else? Or
I try short stories, but I've written a novella, and I'm
hmm
really proud of myself for being brief there.
okay,
But I I've I haven't had much success with short stories. They're usually like a small part of a larger story that
okay,
needs to happen.
hmm
And yeah, I don't know how to be brief.
right,
I'm trying to write blogs. I'm better at writing essays, so
okay,
I'm trying to get that started. At least give myself at least one blog a month to do.
okay. Very good. So your daughter, Hades, is out now.
It's out now, and for the month of February, Black History Month and Valentine's Day, you can get it for 99 cents on Kindle,
Okay.
and $5 off on the hard copy on the paperback. So you can get it for $10.
Okay.
So,
And
get it now.
okay, I will make sure I get this podcast out before the end of February then. So it's still relevant. But I will include in the show notes a link to your website and that we're not, and so they can find out more information about your books there. I think that's everything that I had. Is there anything that hasn't come up that you would like to mention?
No, just no, that's it.
Okay, very good. Well, I thank you for coming on. It was very fascinating to hear the setting for your book and that, and it sounds like a very rich environment for you. So I congratulate you on that, and I wish you all the success with it.
Thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Oh, thank you. Likewise, and I guess that's it. I'll wish you the best of the rest of the day, and go enjoy your cigar and drink.
Totally.
Okay, take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, you too.
Great talking to you.
Bye.
Bye, Mac. Bye-bye.